February 1959, 9 experienced hikers entered the remote Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. They were young, skilled, and fully prepared for one of the most challenging winter expeditions in the country. 10 days later, rescuers found their campsite abandoned. The tent had been slashed open from the inside. The hikers had left behind their boots, coats, food, and equipment, then walked barefoot into temperatures approaching -30 degrees Celsius. Some froze to death. Others suffered injuries so severe that doctors compared them to those from a high-speed car crash. Yet their bodies showed almost no external wounds. One victim's clothing was radioactive. Another was found without her tongue and eyes. The Soviet government called it an unknown compelling force, sealed the investigation, and restricted access to the area for years. More than 6 decades later, despite countless investigations and theories, no explanation has answered every question. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident, one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in modern history. To understand why this case remains so disturbing, you first need to understand who these people were. This was not a group of inexperienced adventurers. The expedition was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student and highly respected mountaineer who had successfully led several difficult winter expeditions. Friends described him as calm, disciplined, and meticulous in planning. Joining him were 8 fellow students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. Every member had extensive winter hiking experience and had completed demanding expeditions before. Among them was Zinaida Kalmogorova, known for her cheerful personality and determination. Rustam Slobodin, an engineer admired for staying calm under pressure. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonischenko, both experienced in surviving harsh winter conditions. The oldest member was Alexander Zolotaryov, a 37-year-old World War II veteran and professional hiking instructor whose experience made him a valuable addition to the team. And then there was Lyudmila Dubinina, only 20 years old, remembered by friends as fiercely determined and unwilling to give up, no matter how difficult the challenge. These weren't reckless thrill-seekers. They were exactly the kind of people others trusted to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. On January 23, 1959, the group left the city of Sverdlovsk and began their journey toward Otorten Mountain in the northern Ural Mountains. Their route was classified as Category 3, the highest level of hiking difficulty in the Soviet Union. Completing it successfully would earn every member a prestigious mountaineering certification. The journey began by train, continued by truck, and finally on skis through deep snow and dense forests. Throughout the trip, the hikers kept diaries and took photographs. The pictures show a group in high spirits, laughing, joking, and helping one another through the harsh winter landscape. Nothing suggested that anything was wrong. Originally, the expedition included a 10th member, Yuri Yudin, but just a few days into the journey, severe leg and back pain forced him to turn back. It was a decision that saved his life. Yudin would later become the last person to see all 9 hikers alive, and for the rest of his life, he carried the painful knowledge that illness had made him the expedition's only survivor. On January 31st, the group reached the edge of the mountain region and prepared for the final stage of their journey. The next day, February 1st, they began climbing the eastern slope of Kolytsyakhl, a mountain whose name in the local Mansi language is commonly translated as Dead Mountain. As heavy snow and poor visibility set in, the group drifted off their planned route. Instead of descending into the nearby forest, where they would have been sheltered from the wind, Igor Dyatlov made a different decision. They would camp on the exposed mountainside. His diary suggested they wanted to practice camping in difficult open conditions, valuable experience for future expeditions. Before darkness fell, the hikers took several final photographs. They show the group smiling as they pitched their tent against the snowy slope, completely unaware that these would become the last images ever taken of them alive. Sometime after nightfall, something happened. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened. The group was expected to send word once they completed their route. When days passed with no message, relatives grew concerned. At first, the delay wasn't considered unusual. Experienced hikers were sometimes slowed by bad weather. But as the silence continued, a search party of volunteers, students, soldiers, and rescue teams was sent into the mountains. On February 26th, nearly 4 weeks after the hikers had pitched their tent, rescuers made a chilling discovery. The tent was still standing on the exposed slope of Kolytsyakhl. What they found inside immediately raised more questions than answers. The hikers' boots were still neatly arranged. Their heavy winter coats remained inside. Food, cameras, backpacks, and other essential equipment had been left behind. It looked as though the group had abandoned everything they needed to survive. Even more disturbing, investigators found that the tent hadn't been opened through its entrance. Instead, someone had slashed several large openings through the fabric from the inside, creating emergency exits before climbing out into the freezing darkness. Outside, a line of footprints led away from the tent toward a distant tree line almost 1.5 kilometers away. Many of the prints were made by people wearing only socks, a single shoe, or no footwear at all. Yet one detail confused investigators more than anything else. The footprints didn't suggest a frantic escape. They showed that the hikers had walked down the mountain in an orderly line. If whatever happened inside the tent was terrifying enough to make them cut their way out into temperatures approaching -30 degrees Celsius, why did they leave so calmly? The tracks eventually disappeared beneath drifting snow, but they gave rescuers one crucial clue. They led straight to the edge of the forest. And that was where the first bodies were found. Beneath a large cedar tree at the edge of the forest, rescuers found the first two victims. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonischenko had died from hypothermia beside the remains of a small fire they had desperately tried to keep alive. The branches high above them were broken, suggesting one or both had climbed the tree, possibly to look back toward the tent or to search for the others. Between the cedar tree and the campsite, 3 more bodies were discovered over the following days. Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kalmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin were lying at different points along the slope, all facing toward the tent. It appeared they had made one final attempt to return to their shelter before the freezing cold claimed their lives. Slobodin also had a small fracture to his skull, but investigators concluded it was not severe enough to have caused his death. The remaining 4 hikers were still missing. It wasn't until May, when the snow began to melt, that search teams finally found them. They were buried beneath nearly 4 meters of snow inside a ravine not far from the cedar tree. Unlike the first 5 victims, these 4 had built a crude shelter from branches, suggesting they had survived longer and continued fighting to stay alive. Even more telling, several of them were wearing clothing that had belonged to the hikers who had already died. It was a desperate attempt to protect themselves from the freezing temperatures, evidence that they hadn't simply panicked. Even in the middle of an unimaginable nightmare, they were still making rational decisions to survive. Then investigators examined their injuries. Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles had suffered a devastating skull fracture. Alexander Zolotaryov and Ludmila Dubinina had massive chest injuries, with multiple ribs broken by an enormous force. The medical examiner later compared the damage to the kind of trauma normally seen in a high-speed car crash. Yet there was something deeply unsettling. The bodies showed almost no major external wounds. No injuries on the skin seemed severe enough to explain the catastrophic damage beneath. It was as though an immense force had crushed them without leaving the marks normally expected from such an impact. Ludmila Dubinina's case was even more disturbing. Her tongue, eyes, and parts of her lips were missing. Some forensic experts believe these injuries occurred after death through natural decomposition and scavenging by animals in the flowing stream where her body was found. Others argue that the circumstances remain unusual and continue to fuel debate. One final discovery only deepened the mystery. Tests later found unusually high levels of radiation on pieces of clothing worn by some of the hikers. To this day, no single explanation has accounted for every one of these discoveries. The investigation, the theories, and the questions that remain. Soviet investigators examined the evidence, interviewed witnesses, and searched for answers. In the end, their official conclusion was only 4 words: an unknown compelling force. The case was closed, the files were sealed, and access to the Dyatlov Pass area was restricted for years. The secrecy only deepened the mystery. Decades later, lead investigator Lev Ivanov revealed that he believed pressure had been placed on the investigation and that something unusual had happened on the mountain. Around the same time, several witnesses reported mysterious glowing orange lights in the skies above the northern Urals. Whether they were military activity, a natural phenomenon, or completely unrelated has never been established. Over the years, many theories have tried to explain what happened. In 2020, Russian authorities concluded that a small snow slab avalanche likely forced the hikers to leave their tent. While some experts support this explanation, others argue that it fails to account for all of the evidence. Other theories include secret military testing, infrasound caused by mountain winds, and even encounters with a Yeti or Bigfoot-like creature. Some have even suggested extraterrestrials or paranormal forces. None of these theories has been conclusively proven. So after more than 65 years, what do we actually know? We know 9 experienced hikers left the safety of their tent in the middle of a freezing winter night. We know some desperately fought to survive, building a fire, constructing a shelter, and using clothing from those who had already died. And we know that no single explanation has answered every question. 9 people entered the Ural Mountains. None of them came home. Perhaps one day we'll finally learn what happened on the slopes of Dead Mountain. Until then, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. What do you think happened that night? Let me know your theory in the comments below.